Hi. Hello, everyone. Hi, Red Berets, Medicare for All. I am just getting home from work. I'm a massage and craniosacral practitioner. My hat doesn't fit very well on my head today, so it's because my hair's up. All right. Well, I have a lot on my mind right now. It's a really busy week. It feels like there's more going on than I can usually keep track of. The exciting news is that I'm going on to. We had some difficulties with scheduling back and forth just a little bit, so that's why I've made a couple of announcements and then retracted and said, "Just kidding, it might be March." But we were able to solidify it. So I will be on Amped Up Pod with Ryan Knight this Friday. Is that the 19th? I think so. Friday the 19th, 4 p.m. Pacific. And I'm really excited about that. But quite a few things, probably that interview opportunity included. They just I have an hour, I have an hour with him. And one of the things I am very nervous, but one of the things that I think is what really strikes me about Ryan Knight that I know and see so far from Twitter and his interviews and his messaging, my takeaway is he is so excellent at just being really strong on the messaging, but he doesn't come off. And I don't mean he's not angry. Maybe I should ask him. Maybe he's super angry. I mean, I know that I think he's angry and deeply disappointed and frustrated and worried. That's just kind of what all of us are. Um, but sometimes my point is, I feel like I'll be able to go on there and hopefully I feel like maybe some of my best qualities. Like I feel that I'm at my best when I feel really hopeful. And I know that's a dangerous thing. And I do tend to be kind of both equally cynical and also still really idealistic, which is an interesting dichotomy, I guess. But I do still have, despite having, like, if you would ask me this morning, I was going through this moment. I had to call Georgia Davenport just to, nerves about the interview. And it's a really exciting opportunity for me. So it's like, I don't want to squander it. I want to, for me, it's not just about getting out the best things that I think people would want to know about whole Washington and our efforts and the Red Berets crafting efforts for whole Washington and for the national movement. I think that stuff is really important, but hopefully I'm able to convey how people can help. For me, the thing that's coming so much to the fore when really pressing on my mind of like, what will I say? What feels the most pressing? And hopefully, like, it's an interview, you know. Duh. Ryan's gonna hopefully ask some important, thoughtful question. And I think he, like so many of us, hopefully seems to understand. Wow, where do we really go from here? We are in a completely failed state. We do not have a democracy. We live in an oligarchy. We are ruled by two corporate parties. Neither of them are representing us. So, then the fundamental question is for all of us is just where do we put our organizing efforts? How do we make the very best out of what is a completely frightening and awful situation? and hopefully he'll be able to help rein in my thought process that gets to be sort of all over the place. I'd like to be able to be coherent. I reached out to Jason Call last night. He gave a he's running again against in the next cycle because he lost by 1% of the vote. I was reading on his Twitter feed, and he ran against Rick Larson, who is the most conservative Democrat in Washington state, obviously like big into takes money from the military industrial complex and the insurance, all the big awesome E's that are stopping us from having progressive policy. So, and anyway, he gave a legislative brief last night. Every single Monday night is a whole Washington volunteers meeting. So I don't know. I think, I'm at liberty to invite whoever it is that I want. It would be interesting if I invited everybody to start coming to the volunteer meetings that are for our state-based initiative, like not initiative, but our legislative and future initiative, our work to pass the whole Washington Health Trust. But last night, we had his name is Sharif, and he is from New York, and he and I have connected on Twitter. And so it was 3 hours later there, and I just suggested, like I said, I still feel so many ways that I could be a more effective organizer, or I don't feel like a knowledgeable or effective organizer. But, he's just coming into things, and I don't know if he's really, hopefully, if he watches this, he's okay with me sharing that he came to the meeting. And, again, like, I know the instinct on so many levels for force the vote was correct. I'm going to still agree to disagree with those Medicare for All organizers and activists who didn't think strategically that it was a good idea. I think people are only framing things within the legislative, like, potential outcome and fallout. And I'm not saying that's not important stuff to consider, but I think a whole area that maybe got neglected in that conversation, and it's still important to have, we can frame it in a different way, but I think it's still an important discussion to be had, because right now the movement feels, to me, incredibly depressed for good reason. Like, some of us are doing okay, and there's a lot of people that they're just not doing okay. They're not okay at all. Like, they're in dire straits, and promised $2,000 checks, $1,400. Like, look at this. We are in such a mess right now. Where was I at with that? Well, so I'm with, like, how depressed that the movement is. Force the vote, whole Washington meetings. You see what I do? Like, get all of these different things in there. In my mind, they're connected up. So that's just the thing that I hopefully will be able to do in the interview, or Ryan will, try to ask a question if I get off track. I think what it got ignored in Force the Vote, and I'll tell you how this is related to the whole Washington meeting last night, is how many people were actually, like, really, really excited and mobilized. People that really, they might have, like, voted for Bernie, or kind of, been a little bit active on Twitter or social media, but hadn't really been, like, organizers or gotten involved in direct action before. But who got really, really, really energized that we were going to fight, truly fight for something, truly fight and push for what it is that we say that we have to have. Healthcare is a human right. we're the only developed country that does not have some form of universal health care or single payer system. People are dying. We're in a pandemic. Let's fight for this like our lives depend on it, because many people's do. That was my whole sort of takeaway and feeling about Force the Vote, is if you really have the courage of your conviction and you're really going to say, these people are going to die this year. They're going to die. Those are the numbers. Those people are, to the insurance lobby and everybody who, all of the politicians on both sides that are working for the insurance lobby against all of us, we are expendable. The people that are the most vulnerable are actually expendable to them. And so for me, Force the Vote was just like really truly looking and seeing, you cannot go through all of your life being like, when this is safe, I'll put it out there. When it feels really safe, I'll put it out there. And to kind of call myself out a little bit, I've been kind of walking a quiet narrative in a certain way. I haven't wanted to demand things and ask things. And I still, at this point, I'm kind of done. Like, I might, on Ryan Night, I might ask, or I might comment that after all of this work that so many of us in Washington State and those of us who support us and all of the other one-payer states, that Maine and New York and California and North Carolina, I'm going to probably miss a couple of them out. Colorado's thinking of going again. It's like, what am I trying to say? See, I don't want to do that on on Ryan's show, but unfortunately it's probably going to happen at least once or twice during the hour. But that's kind of why I'm here talking now on this, is because I'd like to get some nerves out. The most important thing that I let people know is how they can help. And so to just try to wrap up what I was saying about Force the Vote, is it really, for a lot of people, was hope. We, as a movement, the one thing, we can afford some missteps. They're going to happen anyway, whether we can afford them or not. What we can't afford is for everyone to just give up. Is for people to feel we're too far gone. Look at this. It happened in 2016 to Bernie. It happened in 2020. The system is so rigged. There's no way to unrig it. I mean, I'm just saying, And even those of us that are fighting, and organizing on really specific issues every single day, I have those days and those moments where I think that. I think it's disingenuous to, I think we fight because it's right, and we don't. I will say that I have this, I feel like it can happen and it will happen, but I also have days where I'm just like, well, it isn't going to happen like this. It's not going to happen with people attacking each other all the time on any side. But I did take, if we're going to take sides, I did take the side and do take the side of people who are willing to stand up and put it all on the line right now, because we have failed to pass single payer for decades. Somebody, Berets, somebody on Twitter, they are an awesome account. Sometimes I look at certain accounts and I think, why do I not look at this person more? They're so awesome. And then, because I get very, very singularly focused on the people that I'm kind of coalition building. Some people organize in Slack. It's probably a better form of organizing than Twitter. but Twitter is kind of how I feel that we move and shape the national conversation, where we can have some degree of control. It's certainly far from perfect. In fact, I feel like so few people see my tweets. That's another thing that I'm going to ask. It'll be like one of my main calls to action is, please, it's not just a matter of, will you please follow me on Twitter? Make sure you're following. I don't care about how many followers I have. I care about, for people that want to start to move towards this, both and one payer states. Of course, every single day we fight for Medicare for all. If you asked me after I get off of this live feed to call, in fact, I'll make that pledge to you. I can't do it. I was telling Georgia that I was gonna go on Ryan Knight and call up. I would have to say at the very beginning, you're being recorded. I'm on a podcast. And of course they would hang up, and then I could call back and put it on the record on leaving a phone message, but I probably won't waste the time. The thing is, I am willing, even though I know that it's not going to do any good. And that's not a naysayer attitude. That is based on evidence. That's, if I could go get every single person in my precinct right now, I still don't think that would have an impact. It depends on the precinct. I live in a neighborhood where there isn't a lot of money. Like, we have a pretty nice home here. I guess we're gentrifying the neighborhood. It's both. There's people with, but the 27th LD has areas that have like very little money and areas that are much more affluent than where I live. And of course, that's just the 27th legislative district. And we're looking at all of Congressional District 6. It depends on how many constituents called and where they were calling from. I don't really know what would move him. What I will say, with National Nurses United's, we should always have a plan. It's nothing, what's the other choice to even if we think calling up Representative Kilmer is going to yield absolutely zero results, is the other choice to turn around and just be like, this is too difficult. We're never going to get this. They don't care. They're corporately owned. Like, I get that. Believe me, out of everybody, this is why it's a little funny. I had somebody kind of trailing, it was like a Justice Democrat person account that was kind of like following Georgia and I around on Twitter, posting this, like, call your representatives and ask them to, which is just funny to me, because it's like the only thing that Georgia Davenport or I ever do on Twitter is post our action stuff that we're doing. Like, sometimes I feel like when people just randomly make comments, it's like, do you ever look at anything? So if anybody has called their representative and their two senators as many times as me or Georgia Davenport, it's not very many people. I'm not being like, blah, blah. No, it's just the case. I will tell you that after, being part of whole Washington for now 3.5 years and running a ballot initiative, and we were always trying to double these efforts up. So we were asking for people to support whole Washington, but I would always lead, of course, because he's a federal representative. I'd say, when. That's the other thing. You don't say, will you? You say, when, even though they won't. When will you co-sponsor Representative Jayapal's bill for Medicare for All, 1384, or if it's getting a new bill number? I'm not sure. I'm not up to date on that. But the reason I know that he won't is because he had a really quite fairly strong progressive challenger. I mean, she ran a really excellent campaign. She had people out on the ground up until a point with COVID and everything. Rebecca Parson. She was attending all of her, LD and Democrat meetings. She was out organizing at events. I personally received so many phone banks. Like, I was called a lot of times. And I received a lot of emails, and I donated and I helped out where I could, even though my efforts, they would sometimes correlate, but I get very busy with whole Washington. But she had a strong coalition of volunteers. She had all of that sort of endorsement or, interview with the Mike Gravel Institute. I think she was endorsed by by DSA, by Justice Democrats. I kind of forget who all that she had, but she ran a very strong campaign. I would say I think she did well. And the point is that she was not, with that kind of pressure, she was not able. That didn't still present enough of a pressure to move Representative Kilmer towards Medicare for All. A lot of times, a really strong primary challenge, if anything is going to move them, a primary challenge has way more impact than one or a couple people calling. And again, I'm not saying like I can get off the phone and call, because I always want to get a barometer. I always want to let them know, hey, just so you know, we're still out there. We're still organizing with Whole Washington. That's the other thing. I don't introduce myself as just, I'm your constituent. I'm a voter, and I am a local and national organizer. When will you co-sponsor this legislation? But again, I don't think that's going to move him. And so I guess my point is, the National Nurses Strategy, which I've signed up to be an area lead, I feel like, okay, I could be doing more on that front. I could be leading like Zoom calls and reaching out and trying to, because I need to be doing that stuff with Whole Washington anyway. But I would certainly I don't feel like I've done it that much, because, there's a couple of other CD6 area leads, and I feel like they're putting all the eggs into this basket of the national legislation. And if we weren't going to have them force the vote, or show the corporate wing of the Democratic Party just exactly how much business they mean, because that's the thing. It would have been a show of strength and solidarity with the base. It should be a signal to the base to say, we will not relent on this at all. It does not matter what the Biden-Harris administration says. This is the agenda. You're to forget about this. Absolutely not. We never forget about this. We didn't forget when Trump was in office. You don't forget about tens of thousands of people that are dying in our country. The time to fight for this issue is every single day. Okay? So, I've kind of gone all over in that tangent. I just think, I'm getting frustrated. I have a pretty high degree level of frustration at this point, because, well, I'm just reaching the point where we really are on our own. We are to the point of deciding what we're going to do with this movement. We have to look inside of ourselves each day to say, and I kind of don't care if you've been all the respect to you, if you've been a national organizer for Medicare for All for 20 years and you've laid the groundwork, thank you. And I also care, like, what are you willing to do today? What are you doing today? So to me, I am not going to just sit in awe of somebody that's got decades of experience. We haven't got it done yet. And I don't mean that as like any disrespect. I mean, it is apparently something with the strategy is not correct. So we have to try new things, and we have to find ways to bring a lot more people in. We have to make it interesting and fun and inspiring. It has to light a fire under people's butts, right? Somebody called me a boutique leftist. Does that mean like they think like I don't really know what that means. I took it as, oh, she's just selling shit. I got a little defensive about it, because it's like, if anyone had, and I love Bev Cowling, and if this was going to go to anybody in the Whole Washington auction, for the amount, I set it for 99, for the 99%, obviously. And if it was going to go to anyone for the price that it did, which was $125, thank you, Bev Cowling. Because you know what? Right now, $125 is for a beret is really, this is not fully reversible, as you can see. That's kind of, but you could still wear it like this. And I just really want to show it off because it's called brioche or fisherman's rib. It's kind of a double fabric. But yeah, like this was hours. This was hours and hours and hours. And a boutique, I'm not making any money off of this. I donated this thing that was so many hours. And it's not because like the Pussy Hat movement, it's not like, oh, these hats are gonna, if we just look good, we'll have a revolution and we can no, it's the intentionality of like the hours and hours of an intention and work towards Medicare for all. And I ended up getting connected up with this woman, Liliana is her name. And I was kind of abrasive to her on Twitter. And it turns out, because thankfully we made it through that moment where I got a little defensive about something she said, and I had kind of not misinterpreted it, but gotten just kind of segued into something that was just a small part of something, right? She came to the whole Washington meeting last night, and she's like got all these amazing ideas for union organizing and for organizing to get union. We need union support, And then she also DMs and says, my mother has knit for, good causes and all of this. And how could she get in touch with you? And, so at its best, Twitter and other platforms are places for human connection. It's highly flawed. And we can kind of go at each other. And then it's like, if you're not present in the moment to kind of be willing to with just a little bit of a tweak here, could we maybe really get that connection that was almost going to just be a complete write that person off, right? We caught it in time, and she came to the meeting last night. And it's those kind of things that give me hope if we're willing to be intentional. But we have to see, we took action. We weren't just tweeting. We had this thing. She was like, oh, this person, Kelly Powers. And I was like, I don't know, but let me tag two people. Let me tag Georgia and Jen Nye. They both come in and say, yes, she's amazing. Well, that was the link. But because I didn't just stay annoyed, I was like, I don't know that information. Let me tag two other people. And then they come in and say, yes, yes. And that kind of made the connection. And then she pursued it and came to the meeting. So it's not just all about Twitter. It's like, we have to be willing to do stuff, And now she came and is like, here's some of my strengths. Here's what I think I can offer. Here's what I can offer. And here's my healthcare story. I don't want to share all of her stuff. But it's amazing. I want to say shout out to her. And those kind of things make me think we can do this, but we do have to stop looking at for the savior. We're the savior. We're the people that are going to do this, and we can't keep. I need to get going here, but we have to keep pressing this point. There's a big narrative that it has to be done at the federal level. This is not historically correct. Boom, neighbors to the north, Tommy Douglas, Saskatchewan province. That's it. That's it. That's all I have to say about it. They did it over 50 years ago. Saskatchewan opened the floodgates for Canada. They passed their Medicare for all system. They went province by province. I'm not going to, all good efforts. And what's happening with all of the states starting to come together, that was one good, really awesome thing that came, that it was already going on, but it kind of increased and fomented even more, is Georgia Davenport and Jen Nye are doing a lot of this one payer state strategizing. And every time you go to Whole Washington, at Whole Washington on Twitter, or go to their website and get connected up as a volunteer, but I'm saying particularly on Twitter, you see they're following and retweeting Healthcare for All California. We're building up this one payer state solidarity, which Solidarity is what we are going to need to get this done. Not telling people they shouldn't be fighting like hell for Medicare for all. And to my final point before I say goodbye, so I've actually, one of the people that I'm in touch with now on Twitter and have Zoomed with, I mentioned him, Sharif, he is new to Medicare for All, to organizing. And he has some questions and he'd like to do a march for Medicare for All whenever we've got, he's understanding that some people are not going to feel safe or want to go with COVID. We don't know what it's going to look like in the summer, but he just, he describes it as being that he got very, very mobilized and energized and kind of like spurred into action by Force the Vote. It had that kind of energy. It had it for me too. I was like really like dragging and just like really, when is this good there? So of all the different calculations with that, and I like I started to say, and I'm finishing up my train of thought there, is like it can't only be looking at like from an electoral point of view. Is this a win? Is this going to be a legislative? If everything is viewed through the lens of legislative risks, legislative wins, yes, we do need legislative wins, but at the cost of the morale of the movement. We cannot afford people to just give up because there isn't that kind of massive like fight. If the fight goes out of the movement, we're done. So, okay, well, I've got to get going. Look at this. This is coming up to the completion to a beret that I am knitting for Justin Jackson. Would like to find a way to get that to him, and hopefully I will be able to do that. So very excited to be hosting him, Whole Washington, co-hosting with Andre Stackhouse for the live showing of Power to Heal. Please go to wholewashington.org under events, sign up, share it with your friends. We need to fill our 500 Zoom capacity. I'm still not very satisfied that we have so many Whole Washington volunteers and people that are following, and we don't have that number going nearly high enough yet. Progressives need to get a little bit more committal about stuff. We can't be like procrastinating till the last moment. Let me tell you something, the last thing I'm going to say, when I was organizing within the Democratic Party to try to be in the Democratic Party, I can't do that now. I'm sorry, I'm just not doing that. But centrists, people that are going to go as the PCOs, the precinct committee officers that are they can be counted upon to show up and vote. So you can count on a centrist PCO. You might not see them on quite a few of the other meetings, but funnily enough, they are always there to vote. If it came down to a vote of endorsing, say, Rebecca Parson, or to protect and vote to endorse the incumbent, Representative Kilmer, you can count on those people to show up. So I'm here to tell you, progressives, we have to get more committal about stuff. Sign up. Go and sign up on wholewashington.org, please, for the 27th to watch Power to Heal with Justin Jackson and Andre Stackhouse and myself. And, as our panel develops, we'll see what happens. It's extremely important. It's how we pass Medicare. It's Black History Month. Every single person needs to see that film. They need to understand what racial injustice it looked like in the medical for Black people. I can't say that. But prior to the passage of Medicare, and it was because of the civil rights movement that we even passed that legislation. And I feel that everyone needs to know that. And I guarantee you there's an overwhelming majority of people that do not know that. I did not know that as a Medicare for All organizer. I know there's a lot of people that don't know it. We need to see that film. So please go sign up. Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you Friday, if not before.